This is way worse than we thought. Of course, the Chicago Bulls did just enough to get them into the play-in last season. However, predictions on the Chicago Bulls this season have them compared to another Eastern Conference team that is low on the totem pole in the Eastern Conference. Hello, my name is Isaias Jackson Jr. Thank you guys so much for tuning into Bulls Digest. We got to get into all the news and notes, get into the Chicago Bulls and the newest prediction that has them neck and neck with this Eastern Conference team as well. However, 67.5% of you guys are not subscribed. 32.5% of you guys are. We appreciate you guys on both sides of the field. And look, we're about to dive into the fall season. It's about to get colder. Got to get our sweaters out. We're going to feel so good. And if you want to slide into it positively and want to go into it feeling great about you, and especially getting ready for basketball season, got to get a whole lot of good luck charm for that. Hit that subscribe button, like and share. You know that subscribe button is a good luck charm. And also, you can tune in to us and get all your fun content based on the Chicago Bulls. And thank you guys so much as well for tuning into Bulls Digest. Bulls are sadly being lumped with this habitual Eastern Conference bottom dweller. And yeah, I think that's the perfect way to describe it there. I think that you can't describe that any better coming from Andrew Halan as well. And I think this is an absolute gut punch to the Chicago Bulls, and this is exactly where they're heading as you see the troubles that they're dealing with in the offseason right now. Of course, Josh Giddey still is without a contract with the Chicago Bulls. Nikola Vucevic still in the Chicago Bulls jersey, him and Patrick Williams, for those guys to be in trade rumors in the beginning of the offseason, more likely than not Nikola Vucevic more than Patrick Williams, and yet nothing is yet to be done with the team. Not a whole lot of change has been done outside of the Lonzo Ball trade, sending him to Cleveland for Isaac Okoro, and yet nothing. This is the same old team, and hopefully we could get the same explosiveness that we got from the team at the tail end of the season. But that, of course, highly unlikely, especially with a couple of players as well on expiring contracts, the Dalen Terrys, the Kobe Whites, of course, the Ayo Dosunmu. And so this team right now just it's a huge question mark slapped right on it. So, of course, as if Chicago fans weren't despondent enough, the Bulls are now being tossed in the same basement bargain bin as the Charlotte Hornets, as two teams projected to finish at the bottom of the Eastern Conference standing and franchises heading in the wrong direction, which, I mean, Charlotte Hornets, it's always been like that. The writing has been on the wall for the Charlotte Hornets for a long time, and I mean, we can even explain it as we go on here. Charlotte Hornets haven't made the playoffs since the 2015-2016 season, when it lost in 7 games to Miami Heat. Joe Johnson and Luol Deng started every game of that series for Miami, while Al Jefferson, Marvin Williams, and Jeremy Lin appeared in all 7 for the Hornets. It's been a minute, like that. It's been a long minute. I was still in high school when, as a 26-year-old man right now, I was in high school when the Charlotte Hornets was last in the playoffs. And so, the last time the franchise has won a playoff game since 2001 and 2002, when they beat the Orlando Magic in 4 games, back when first round series were best of 5. So yeah, just a long minute in itself. So yeah, not the kind of company the Bulls want to find themselves in. Unfortunately, there are some eerie similarities between Chicago and Charlotte at the moment, which ESPN points out in an article predicting the conference standings for the next season. And that's my thing about this. And this is why I completely disagree. And I think the environment says a whole lot about it. When you have guys there in Charlotte, like the LaMelo Balls of the world, at the point in time that you did have Grant Williams, and I want to pinpoint it to when Terry Rozier was traded. When Terry Rozier was traded from Charlotte Hornets to the Miami Heat, he talked about his time in Charlotte, and even though he was really respectable, he talked about the environment there, and he explained that wins and losses didn't really matter for this team, because at the end of the bench, they were only focused on what was happening after the game. They only cared about what was going on in their personal lives, what was going on in there. This is a Terry Rozier quote, and the reason why I thought about this is because when I did a show in Phoenix, Arizona, that was the number one thing that was brought up in the forefront. He was just happy to be a part of a winning culture. Now, although they didn't win too much when he joined on to the team with the Miami Heat, he still wanted to pinpoint that I'm happy to be around a team that is pinpoint and dead set on winning, and their primary focus is being better onto the basketball court, instead of what you're seeing with the Charlotte Hornets, where at least in the LaMelo Ball's aspect and a little bit of Brandon Miller's, it's a lot of flash. It's potential, it's star power, and then you get to the court, there's not wins aren't pertaining to it. There's no help, on the win side as well, and they're young. They're young as well with LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, of course, with the track record that Miles Bridges has as well. The Josh Greens of the world, Con Nepal as well, or Kneppel, however you want to say his name. I heard it in when he was at Duke, it was Nepal, and then of course he gets drafted as Kneppel. So I need some help here. What's this man's name? Explain yourself. Of course, the Conlon Sextons of the world, Trey Mans, they have some solid talent on this roster, but it's not going to get you over the hump. It's not a top 5 roster on this in the league, but it's young and it's a lot of potential, and there's some bright spots on there. But you see them on the court and you see them on the floor, and you look at the roster and you're like, are they really taking basketball seriously? And you even heard it from Steve Clifford himself. You even heard from the head coach. This Charlotte Hornets team was struggling, at least in terms of the focus aspect and trying to stay focused on the basketball aspect of it all. And you've seen it. It's all flash. When I'm not, that's only my last pinpoint at that, because now I'm just going to be pretty much repeating myself. But yeah, it's just all flash when it came to the guys. And so even though there was some high volume highlights, especially from a LaMelo Ball, from a Brandon Miller, even from a Miles Bridges, it wasn't wins coming out of there at all. And so, and then you have the Charlotte Hornets announcers, diddly-dee, chakaku-doo-doo-doo, the cow says moo, if you ever seen iCarly, it's like, they had so many outlandish, calls that it was fun, to watch the Charlotte Hornets. And even you can go back and say, yes, it's fun to watch the Charlotte Hornets when they're playing defense. When they're playing defense, they can hit their shots and not taking low IQ shots as well. But this isn't the Charlotte Hornets channel. The only reason why I'm bringing this up, and the only reason why I'm trying to explain myself going into the Charlotte Hornets, is because this isn't the Chicago Bulls. I think the Chicago Bulls are well off in terms of the potential, and they've shown you that they want to win, and you've seen the dedication and hard work from the team themselves. And of course, we can just compare the players as well as we go on. So of course, unfortunately, predicting the conference standings for next season, ESPN points out the similarities and differences between the Chicago Bulls and Charlotte Hornets as well. So we continue on. Pretty much goes on to say, look, Chicago's last playoff berth came only 4 years ago as opposed to 10, and the Bulls at least won a game in that series against the Milwaukee Bucks. Ask a Hornets fan if they would complain about making 3 straight play-in tournaments. Chances are they will happily take it. Of course, that's no shock at all. Both teams have young players heading towards their prime years. The Bulls have Josh Giddey and Kobe White, while Charlotte Hornets have LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, who I think are just crazy athletic and really, really fun to watch on both sides of the floor of LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. Montes Buzelis is the future of Windy City, while the Hornets have rookie Con Nepal as well. Both franchises have extremely raw upside forwards in rookie Noah Asingay and sophomore Tajane Saloon as well, who had a really solid summer league as well. That's something I wanted to point out too. But of course, as much as the Chicago Bulls fans might not want to hear it, especially before the season starts, the two teams will likely be fighting for a spot in the play-in or back half of the lottery. In fact, the Bulls are projected to finish 11th in the East and the Hornets 13th in the rankings. Chicago is in a better spot, however. Giddey is coming off his best NBA season. Ball has missed significant time with injuries and seems to be the prototypical good stats, bad team guy. Of course, sometimes he could be a stat patter. I won't necessarily call him a stat patter through and through, but there are some games where it's just like LaMelo Ball is just like pretty much throwing this rock, trying to get this synthesis or trying to bulldoze everybody out the way to get that 10th rebound that he's wanting so bad. And LaMelo Ball can show that. He can show a little bit of selfishness. You can see some selfish play in LaMelo Ball's game, and in terms of just ISO ball and just the way he goes about playing the game of basketball. And especially when there's help. In the beginning, we there wasn't really much to say because there was no help. Now, when you have talent around you in the Brandon Miller, in the Miles Bridges, you can work with what you got there. And so I do want to see that turn around for LaMelo Ball if we can. But of course, Buzelis is a better all-around prospect than Miller or Nipple as well. Salon was even more raw than Asenge is now when the Hornets made him the number 6 overall pick 2 summers ago. And White is the most polished player, 25 or younger, on either roster. When you have him, that's the biggest. That's what we got to push in there. When you have him, so when you have Kobe White right now, that's no telling what Kobe White's season is going to be. Of course, I talk about it on here many times. This is a contract year for Kobe White, so I'm expecting him to go absolutely ballistic for that contract that he's going to be fighting for so hard. So the comparisons are too close for comfort, though. The Bulls have to escape mediocrity and win a playoff game, or make the playoffs at least, if they hope to share these similarities. And I mean, to have the Chicago Bulls 13th, I think is a huge stretch. And of course, well, the 11th, excuse me, to have the Chicago Bulls 11th in the East and the Charlotte Hornets at 13th. The Chicago Bulls ended 10th, so they're just going to be a spot down. I do think they can still hold off against the Toronto Raptors, against the Brooklyn Nets, the Philadelphia 76ers, who else was below them? Of course, the Charlotte Hornets as well, and the Washington Wizards. And hell, they were going back and forth with the Atlanta Hawks. I'm expecting the Atlanta Hawks to at least have a little bit of a decline to see what they do with Trae Young as well. The Chicago Bulls could still find themselves in the play-in this season. It's just a matter of how much is this contract negotiation or the contract in the offseason with the Chicago Bulls going to affect Josh Giddey going into this season? How is this contract year for Kobe White going to affect the Chicago Bulls this offseason? What is Montes Buzelis' sophomore season going to look like? What is Noah Asenge's freshman year season going to look like? Are we going to see some help come from Patrick Williams in any way, shape, or form? What's the center position going to look like for the Chicago Bulls? Still a lot of question marks for them, but at the end of the day, I don't think having the Chicago Bulls mixed in there with the Charlotte, I think that's a little crazy. But having them mixed in there with the 11th seed, 11th, 10th seed, I don't think it's necessarily too much to chirp about. I think that's pretty solid because there's still a lot of unknowns with the Chicago Bulls team. To mix them with the Charlotte Hornets who are also on the rise, but to still hear what the environment was like in Charlotte Hornets, and I'm just talking about last year, tail end of, beginning of last year, tail end of 2 years ago in that season. So I really want to see what the start of the Chicago Bulls season is going to look like, because last season got off to a really, really rough start, and of course they pretty much found their way as the season progressed. But what do you think? Do you think that the Chicago Bulls and the Charlotte Hornets are pretty much in the same room here? Do you think they're going to be battling it out for last place here in the Eastern Conference, or do you think the Chicago Bulls have a little bit more talent than the Charlotte Hornets? And do you think the ESPN are being just a little bit disrespectful with their rankings here? Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.